Recorded live at Town Hall here at Pillar Measurements. This is AE Squared. The French painter Degas once said, "Art is not what you see, it's what you make others see." And today, we're going to explore that with the artist based here in Austin, Texas, Pat Chapman, who's going to share with us both her gift, her painting, but especially her mission. Pat, we are so blessed to have you here on the AE Squared stage. Welcome. Great to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and pardon my voice. I've been rather popular this week. So Pat, to get started, can you give us a little bit of a tour of your life from where you came up, how you've established or discovered your gift, and what brought you to today, where you've made all of these beautiful works that we're going to share with our viewers?
Oh, I guess it started probably when I was a teenager. I started just piddling around with art. I've never taken a class, and so I feel like I've been given an artistic gift, but I've never developed it. And moved forward into my 30s, I started doing oil portraits. So they were very precise, very, perfect.
Right.
And then I kind of took a break for a while, and then I discovered a medium called collage, which is just using acrylics and using handmade papers, and that was just so different than what I'd done before. It was very freeing. Yeah, lots of texture. I love texture. Mm-hmm. So I started doing that, and then I started taking workshops and taking classes and learning more. And then this last year, with the encouragement of my husband, because he believes in my gift and I didn't, but he encouraged me to sign up with an art coach out of Taos. I've taken 5 workshops from her personally in Taos. So I signed up with her and met with her on a weekly basis on Zoom, and just found this love and freedom in art that I've never felt before. And
so what did she teach you? What was the, if you mind, what was the breakthrough in these that's kind of opened your eyes and your technique and whatnot?
She could see what my husband could see. She could see the gift that I had, and I was just your typical artist going, "Oh, I'm not very good. Oh, I could never have a show. Oh, I'm just, yeah, I'll just do that. I'll just keep piddling."
Right.
But he just said enough, and so I was okay. So I signed up with this artist. Her name is Gwen.
Right.
And we met once a week for an hour, and she had to break through that wall with me. She had to break through and just say, "Enough. You are gifted, and I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to teach you and to train you to be the artist that you're made to be." And that took probably a month or two, but then once I was sailing, it was just freedom. It was just so much freedom.
So was there a moment in that where, was it her telling you that you just finally agreed, or was it you looked at the work that was under your brush at the time, that you stepped back and there was that pivot, that aha moment that you went, maybe there's something to what they're saying?
I think the latter. I think that is what happened, because I would put a piece away thinking I'm not happy with this. I'd put it away, and then I'd bring it out 2 weeks later and go, that's pretty awesome.
Not bad.
And then I was doing a master class online with Gwen and with 6 other artists. And I'll never forget, there was this one artist that I just loved. He was great, and his work that he would show was so good. And so I put up, I think it was the piece that I called my park bench guy. Mm-hmm. And I put it up, and his comment was, "Pat, that's the bomb." And I went, what? There's someone else other than my husband and Gwen who liked my art.
Right.
And so it just started evolving from there. So,
Interesting.
and then I think that was probably the pivotal point right there. I was like, okay, I got this.
So things have kind of accelerated then in the last year for you as you've developed.
They have.
Fun.
Yeah.
So take us into your heart and into your head. Okay. And let's look at you. We're going to share some video that we've shot of you in your studio. But when you step up to a blank canvas, take us what's in your head and in your heart on that blank canvas. Is there something that you want to communicate? How does that process start?
My my work is very personal, but when you look at it, I think it can be very universal. And when I go literally up to a blank canvas, rather than a fear, it's just, I don't know what I'm going to do today, but the word that comes to my heart this morning is expectancy. So I'm just going to take charcoal and I'm going to write expectancy across. You'll never see that word, but it'll start evoking, oh, the color that would work with that, and then the layers or the different palette that I may use. And then things will start just evolving, because I work in layers. Each of my pieces are a minimum of 3 to 8 layers of paint or paper or charcoal or pastel.
So that starts with like a wash is the first layer, or
Sometimes it's just the charcoal, and
It's
then I'll
charcoal.
wet the charcoal, and then I'll seal it, and then I'll put paint on top of that, or I'll put paper on top of that. So it's just, it's really just play. I'm just kind of playing around at the beginning, just getting a feel for where I want to go. And that word that I wrote, expectancy, may change on about the second layer. And maybe something I read or a feeling, an experience that I'm having will start to play out on the canvas.
So is there a point where you start with a word and you're playing, and so you're riffing on this first, maybe second layer, but is there a point where if you start to get a vision of where you're going to go, as opposed to just improvising? I mean, is this an improvisation to all the way to the end? Or is there somewhere along the way in the development of this work where you see where you're going to end this work at? You know what I'm saying?
I don't get too far into the work before I know where it's going to go.
Okay.
But it needs to be developed. This one, this one was, the title of this is Scars and Tattoos. I got my first tattoo like 3 years ago, and it was a fun experience. I like what my tattoo says. I love my tattoo.
You're definitely from Austin.
But and so this just spoke to me of tattoos, but also just the scars that we have in our lives that can bring us to healing. So it's not a dark painting to me. Was just a lively, textural painting that I really enjoyed doing. Really enjoyed.
Is that you?
No, I guess it could be. Some of them could be autobiographical, but again, I feel like they're somewhat universal. I enjoy doing the head shape. I enjoy doing faces. I enjoy doing eyes.
So let's talk about the eyes for a second, because many of the pieces that we're going to share at the end of this interview, make sure you pay attention towards the end. We're going to take you through an art show. You are, as best I can tell, very well known for this theme of a partially hidden, partially exposed face, but the dominant feature is a very focused eye. For me, when I see your work of the eye, it is why I chose the quote that I did. It is, I see into that heart, but I feel like it's doing the same back at me. Take me into that, because this is a theme in this series. What is that saying about you, and what is it, because I know these aren't you, but tell me a little bit about your life that is making that eye so dominant in your work?
Great question. My series Authenticity was born out of when I realized that I was not living an authentic life. I had just a beautiful moment about 7 years ago where I was called away from a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And it was kind of masking who I was. And it was just a great place to hide. It was a really good place to hide. And so now I'm exposed. But you see one thing, but I feel differently. I feel kind of messy. I feel kind of raw. And I don't mean messy and raw in a bad way. So the other half of my paintings that don't have an eye, that are just kind of messy and lots of color, I see those as kind of beautiful, because I think we all have scars. We all have not perfection, not just perfect beauty. And so I was trying to show the dichotomy of what people see and what you really, really are like. And that messy is okay. That messy is okay. Yeah.
So there is a little bit of you in these, even
Probably
though that's not you. There's a little pat
Oh, okay,
there.
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, probably so.
So, as we've discussed earlier, and I've seen as well, you're becoming much more popular, and your works are starting to sell a little bit, and things are moving in a positive direction. Talk to us a little bit about the tainted part of artists, selling out to the man, as some of my musicians friends like to talk about, right? Which is, at some point, most artists, they need to pay bills with it. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but tell me a little bit about your experience trying to take a gift in the art world and creating cash flow with it. Because as our show is based, it's the artist. What's fascinating sometimes is to find the entrepreneur in there, as well as to understand their technique. Can you tell us a little bit about the business person and the engineer or the technician in what your journey is taking you on?
Okay. The business person probably was non-existent.
Okay.
Typical artist, I just want to do my art and just have it magically sell. I don't want to have to work too hard to do that because I might be rejected. Somebody might not like my work. And so taking my work to a gallery and having them go, yeah, no, we're not interested, was just too scary for me. So I had two guy friends who are artists, a completely different genre than I work in, and they said, let's have a show. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, that's too scary. But they loved me, and they pushed me until we finally had a show, and it was probably one of the highlights of my life. I've never had so much fun. I love working with these guys. And we had a large audience. All of us sold really well, and it felt really good. And I went into the show saying, I just want people to look at my work. I want to hear what they have to say. I really didn't care. And I say that with all sincerity. I really didn't care if I sold anything.
Right.
But the fact that I sold 6 pieces was
That's
just
fantastic.
it was amazing. But it was so much fun. So it just removed that last vestige of fear
Right.
that I had, and so now the fear is gone, and I can go to a gallery and offer my work, and if they don't like it, that really is okay because that's not their, what they're looking for. But now the fear truly is gone, and so now I am a professional artist. I can do that.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is.
The beautiful thing that you've offered 2 examples already where you have had fear and people come around you to help you address that fear.
Yeah.
Do you pause and consider having come on the other side? It sounds as though the actuality wasn't as nearly as negative as what your fear led you to believe, right? Speak to that, to the other artists. There are so many people with gifts that have not been found, that are hidden under a bushel, as the word says, right? What would you say to those budding artists or people who have something inside of them but lots of doubt? What has been your journey, and what would be what you would share to others to help them maybe confront those fears and not hide their gift?
Gosh, the first thing I would say is, find someone that you can do your art with. Who can encourage you. You might not be able to afford a coach for a year, but find another artist that you admire and just say, can I hang out with you and just paint with you? I think that would be the main thing. And testing the waters is really hard, but just being in community, I think, is the most important thing.
Have you had to deal with rejection to some degree?
What's weird is I haven't.
Wow, it's coming.
It's
It's coming in all good endeavors.
It's coming from here.
Yeah, that's right. Much more.
But now I can accept the rejection because it's not personal. It's not, the gallery may have a certain style or a certain clientele. I don't know, but it just, it doesn't matter.
So, taking the point that you made, which is to surround yourself hanging out with other painters. This is a perfect segue in something that I find very, very moving personally. And that is how you've taken your gift and turned it into a mission. and allowing other people to hang out with you.
Oh.
And I really, of all the messages, I love your art, but you stole my heart when you told me about your mission. And so I want to give you the opportunity. Can you explain to our viewers what you're doing as you explained it to me earlier? Because this is a message that needs to be heard.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have the blessed opportunity to be a volunteer as a studio coordinator for Art from the Streets here in
Art from the
Austin.
Streets.
And it's a program that started with colored pencils and typing paper 26 years ago. And we give a space, a studio space, 4 days a week to artists who are homeless or have been homeless and or in danger of being homeless again. We have about, probably constantly about 30 to 35 artists that are with us every week. And they come and paint for 2 hours. We set up the studio for them at the Trinity Center downtown. And they come and paint. All of them say that it's safe. It's a safe environment. And we provide all the materials for them. We used to just pay them once a year. We had a big show in December, and we would pay them once a year. And I remember thinking, that just broke my heart. They would sell their work.
They'd sell their work.
Yes, we would
So
have shows for
you're
them.
providing a place for them to take their artwork and by their own hands create an income.
Exactly. So everything that they would paint during the year, we would take it, we would get it mounted, we would put it up at the convention center, and we would have thousands of pieces of art. And they would get paid once a year. And that just always made me sad. But our organization got to such a place where we can have payday once a month. We have pop-up shows at the Violet Crown, at various churches, at East, at West, and the artists take home 95% of everything that they sell.
Isn't that fantastic?
And so most of our artists have housing, and because of what they make, during the year. And it's and these artists they've become my friends.
Certainly.
And they're so gifted. They would wow you if you could see their art.
Can you, without mentioning names or something, can you share with us the story of one or two of your friends about that journey? Because there's something about the dignity that you, or the platform for dignity, the skill, the ability to communicate and be heard, which I would imagine is a challenge.
Yeah.
That is just a beautiful story. How has that, and you provide housing, but has that also provided grounds for them to have belief in themselves again and to move forward with their life?
I think so. We had an artist just a few days ago that had work at the show in December. Right. And she obviously didn't think she sold anything, but when she came for payday on Tuesday, she left the room where we pay them in tears because she was shocked at how much that she made. And she was just stunned. I mean, we were like, "Are you okay?" And it was like, I had no idea. And that was such a sweet thing. And we had another artist that was bringing her work. She has a car. Right. And she was bringing her work to the show, and somebody broke in her car and stole everything. So here she has nothing to show at the show, but because our volunteers and our executive director have hearts that are about that big, we just took up donations and gifts, and I don't know how much it was, but she talked about it for a week. She was so stunned, and she's been in our program for a long time. Right. So little things like that happen. We have another artist that has been sleeping on benches and in buses for years, getting beaten up and having things stolen from him. But because of the money he's been able to make through the sales, he now lives at Community First. He has a home. Fantastic. He has a home, and he believes in his art, and it's a beautiful thing. And so now he has 2 studios where he can paint. So there are just so many stories. I love these guys. And women. So
help our viewers understand, because this will go out to YouTube, but also to podcast. On YouTube, obviously, we'll be posting URLs, websites where they can learn more. But for our folks that are listening at home, help us understand where our viewers can participate, come to a show, donate? Help us understand how we can help this cause.
Okay, well, we do have a website. It's
Okay.
it's artfromthestreets.org.
Okay.
And there's a donation tab. There is a volunteer tab where you can come in the studio and you can volunteer every week. We have two separate studios. One is on Red River, one's on Trinity. And you can come and hang out with the artists. You help us set up and help just hang out with the artists. We're at East and at West, so you can volunteer at the shows, which are just a blast. They're just fun. This last show at East, we had a mural artist that came and did graffiti art, and then the people in the audience and our artists could get up there and do graffiti art too.
Right.
And so there's really they're a lot of fun. But we have pop-up shows, all during the year. But the main thing is working in studio with the artists.
Right.
Yeah, but there's an online, you can sign up on there, and then there's a little hour training that we do just to prep you for everything that we do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great.
So for those of you who are listening via podcast, I would encourage you to take the time to come to YouTube, because we're going to take the rest of our time together, and we're actually going to provide an art show of Pat's work, and with Pat speaking to each of the pieces and what was happening in her life or what she was communicating at the time. So if you're on podcast, we welcome you to join us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and join us at AE Squared. We've got some fabulous and interesting people coming up in future episodes, so join us there. And if you're on YouTube, buckle up. We're going to take a look at Pat's art now.
Okay, this piece is it's a mixed media collage on canvas. It is called My Hiding Place, and you can look at that two ways, that this is a place where I hide. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't want people to see me. But also there's a verse that is really special to me that says, "The Lord is my hiding place." And so there's some beautiful colors and textures and things in here that, to me, this is the positive end on this is my hiding place. This is an acrylic on paper, and the name of it is My Park Bench Guy. And I didn't paint it of anyone. I was just playing around and working with textures and with a pencil and with my paints. And he literally just appeared. And he's a little wonky. His eyes aren't centered. His coloring is obviously not right. But he just made me really happy. He just appeared when I was sitting on a park bench up on the Columbia River in Washington. All right, and this is another mixed media piece on canvas. It is, the title of it is His Name is Hope. And this is another one of those that has just one side showing the eye, but the metallic and drip of the other side, to me, just felt like a washing over of hope. There's a beauty about him, there's a color about him, and his eyes are hopeful. They're not quite smiling, but they are hopeful. And this one is just the eye rather than just half of the face. And this one, quite honestly, I was just having fun with. I was having fun playing with the eye and the intensity of the eye, and it's called Looking Deeper. How you can just look deeper into someone's soul or just into their conversation, but just looking deeper. But this is mixed media. It's got handmade papers and acrylic and charcoal. And this is another one, but this one is called Testing the Waters. And it's on this side, there's a lot of texture, and that's the other side of the face, but it's just, am I brave enough to let you see who I really am? And so there's a little trepidation in the eye, but I'm just going to jump out there and test the waters. And this one is probably similar to the last one, Testing the Waters, but this one is called Emergence. And she's just kind of coming through the fog, kind of coming through the clouds, coming through the fear, but she's coming through, she's coming forward. And this one is strict abstract. It has nothing to do with my Authenticity series, but it's called The Islands. My happy place is in the Caribbean, and I do a lot of snorkeling and diving down there. And these are all the images, the textures that I see under the water, all the fans, the fish, just all the colors. And then this is just the peacefulness of the sand. So it's very simple. It's complicated, but it's under the water and on the beach. And I call it the island.
AE Squared is a Hiller Measurements Town Hall production. Copyright 2020. AE Squared is produced by Anthony Longoria. Production support by Christian Zamora. The email address, if you'd like to attend a future taping, is tickets@hillermej.com. Hey, thanks for checking out this week's episode of AE Squared. Just as we're going to air on this episode, we also just taped the next one, and that's with Kimberly Spate. Kimberly is pitching a new book that's all about the power of networking and how you can get better at it. Wonderful interview, beautiful lady with fantastic thoughts. You're really going to love this episode. Check us out in the next couple of weeks, so subscribe, would you? And come meet Kimberly Spate a couple weeks from now on AE Squared.